and welcome to the 2021 AAAPP Virtual Luncheon. Today, we're going to celebrate seniors, their resilience, and how it's helped all of us to get through a very tough year. I'm Anne-Marie Winter, the Executive Director here at the Area Agency on Aging of Pasco-Pinellas, and I'm joined today by Sally Parks on our AAAPP Board of Directors. She was actually our first board president back in 2000 and still serves. She has served this county in many different ways as a county commissioner and probably most notably as the force behind the establishment of the Silver Alert system in Pinellas County, which was later adopted under Governor Charlie Crist statewide in 2009. So the next time you're driving down the road and you see that Silver Alert come across the neon board above you, know that Sally Parks helped make that happen. And because of that, many thousands of seniors have been saved, maybe one even right now.
Anne-Marie, thank you for that very nice introduction. Anne-Marie and I are going to share some remarkable stories of resilience today. At the end of today's event, with we have a grand giveaway at the end of today's event with one lucky winner from those of you attending that will win a 3-day stay at a Hilton Orlando hotel. Well, Anne-Marie, let's get started. We are very fortunate to have Florida Department of Elder Affairs Secretary Richard Prudhomme with us this morning to welcome everyone to our event.
That's right, Sally. Secretary Prudhomme joins us this morning live from Tallahassee. The Secretary has more than 30 years in executive leadership with the state of Florida. During his time at the Department of Elder Affairs, he has led many efforts to make Florida an age-friendly state with a mission to help Florida's 5.5 million elders, the most of any state in the country, remain healthy, safe, and independent. During his time at the department, Secretary Prudhomme also led several initiatives, including the Dementia Care and Cure Initiative and the Communities for a Lifetime, among the many new innovations he has spearheaded and implemented. I'm more than happy to welcome Secretary Prudhomme. He's here live, so let's hear from him right now.
Thanks, Anne-Marie and Sally. It's although I'm in Tallahassee, I think I'd much rather be down there with you guys, as I was well, it seems like a lifetime ago, but just a couple of years. But obviously, we've had to deal with something called a pandemic. But and I'm glad to sort of see that the focus of this luncheon is celebrating resilience, because I think that's something that has been front and foremost for the last 470 plus days. You know, one result of this pandemic has really been an increased awareness and appreciation for the work of AAAPP and, in fact, the aging network throughout the state. And I think, you know, there's a newfound recognition that although social and human services are not medical services, they are still very important as they support the health and well-being of our older citizens. And I think obviously the disproportionate impact of the pandemic on those individuals just reinforced just how important they are. You know, the very nature of the programs and services that you provide to people in need, namely they are home and community based, meant that reducing exposure by the social distancing that was required was challenging, to say the least. But you know, you and your colleagues throughout the state really met that challenge head on. You know, at the beginning of the pandemic, you turned your immediate attention to addressing those basic needs. You know, I'm talking about the steep increases in home delivered meals and grocery and prescription delivery services. I think in your planning and service area, well over 1 million meals have been home delivered in the last year, which is incredible. But once those processes stabilized, then you shifted your focus to addressing the social and emotional needs, and then brainstorming creative ways to address and help mitigate those negative health impacts of loneliness, and also reducing social isolation. And again, the challenge of socially distancing while doing that was incredible. And then along, obviously, with the advent of vaccines and the governor's focus on seniors first, you found ways to assist seniors to get vaccinated. You know, and thanks to volunteers like Mary Haddon Doyle, you have helped almost 85% of people over the age of 65 in this state get vaccinated. Incredible work indeed. You know, Helen Keller had a quote, "Although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of the overcoming of it." I think what's happened in the last year at AAAPP and throughout the state is an example of that. So, I think, although we rightly applaud our nurses and doctors who are fighting the virus on the front lines, but I also want to recognize the efforts of AAAPP and your colleagues who we all like to call home healthcare heroes. Before the pandemic, we recognized that the communities that will fare best in the 21st century will be those that both tackle the challenges, but also embrace the possibilities that an aging population creates, essentially becoming livable communities where we can all live well and age well. And, as we know in our line of work, successful livable communities focus on those social determinants of health, the conditions in which we are born, grow, live, work, and age. And we talk in things like socioeconomic status, education, appropriate affordable housing, transportation options, safe streets, safe neighborhoods, and protection against, abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Obviously, the importance of social support networks, addressing loneliness and social isolation, but employment, and I think, more as well, a really importance of access to personalized healthcare. And we know that COVID-19 shook the foundation of all those determinants and really disrupted those core services necessary to provide older adults with access to social isolation and senior centers and the health centers and transportation to doctor's appointments and such, and also the other fundamental aspects of living a quality life. So that disruption changed the very focus of all communities to meet the most immediate needs for simple survival. But as we know, surviving is not the same as thriving. And the author James Cassio said, resilience is all about being able to overcome the unexpected. Sustainability is about survival. The goal of resilience is to thrive. So while the pandemic has created havoc and uncertainty, it has also provided numerous opportunities for rebuilding and reorganization at all levels, and also the ability of communities to see the benefits of new and expanded technology with the advent of new programs, and improved services. And we have received significant funding through the American Rescue Plan Act and also the Elder Justice Act. So, but I don't think this is just an opportunity, though. It's a responsibility for us, a serious responsibility for us to work with our communities with a renewed vigor as they rebuild and reorganize and create stronger relationships and partnerships that benefit not only older adults, but all Floridians, so that we all can live well and age well. After seeing your resilience over the last 470 days to protect and support your communities throughout the pandemic, I have no doubt you'll take this responsibility head on and be incredibly successful. So thank you for all you have done and continue to do, and really enjoy the next hour as you celebrate each other and moving on to what's going to be our ongoing challenges and opportunities. So again, thank you, and I'll turn that back to Sally and Anne Marie.
Thank you, Secretary Prudhomme. You've been such an incredible leader and the governor's point person on ensuring that seniors receive the services they needed during the pandemic. I know that there were days in the last 14 months when talking to you was just what I needed to help me figure out how to get something done. You're a tireless advocate for seniors, an amazing leader, and we are so grateful that you're our secretary for the Department of Elder Affairs. Thank you for joining us today, Secretary.
Thank you very much.
I couldn't agree more, Anne Marie. I would like now to take this opportunity to thank our event's presenting sponsor, Humana, for their support. Our AAA has been collaborating with Humana on a number of different projects under the Bold Gold umbrella, including an intergenerational project that brought together seniors and youngsters at the Enoch Davis Rec Center in South St. Pete 2 summers ago, and a bus buddy program that is helping Pasco County seniors learn how to ride our local bus system. We will hear a few words today from Mr. Al Hernandez from Humana. Al joined Humana in 1996 and has over 25 years of experience in sales, account management, and healthcare operations for both the public and private sectors.
Let's hear from Al now.
Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to be the presenter sponsor. First of all, I personally live in Pasco County. It's a wonderful place to live, to work, and to grow older. I wouldn't live in Pasco, right, if I wouldn't think that it was a fantastic place to live. But also, I feel the same way about the Tampa Bay area. Through my role as a Bold Gold chair and the vice president for the public sector division in Humana, I am fortunate to be able to address the important needs of our communities and our members, and help make easier for them to achieve the best health. That's what we're all about. We want to make sure that our communities can achieve their best health. We recognize that we must do this part by partnering with trusted partners across the entire community, and organizations like the Area Agency on Aging for Pasco-Pinellas. That organization has been an integral part of what we do and how we go to market, and really how we execute our commitment in our communities. For those of you who haven't heard, Humana created a bold goal to increase the health in the Tampa Bay by working closely with our government agencies, nonprofits, as well as business community and business partners. The bold goal is about developing an integrated solution that aligns with our community partners for the good health of all. In Humana, we're focusing on customers' journey, right? And working to provide opportunities to help them achieve the whole person health. A customer to us might be an individual, it might be a group, for example, a Hillsborough County School Board, or quite honestly, Joe Mufford. You know, we do that across the board. We provide products and features, so as a healthcare benefit, dental care, vision care, wellness care. I mean, those are all the products that we bring to the table, you know. But through the past years, our communities, and especially our vision, it is to be able to help, you know, the communities that we serve and to get them healthier. This past year has been an interesting year, and it's been a very challenging year, especially for our seniors that have been impacted by the pandemic. Our partnership with organizations like the Area Agency on Aging has been, as I said before, absolutely invaluable to be able to achieve our goals. Like Humana, Anne-Marie Winter and her staff really care about the needs of our seniors. While the AAAPP worked very fast to expand Pasco County and Pinellas capacity for home delivery and grab-and-go meals, Humana also was reaching out to members to provide food through COVID response meal. We felt that that was absolutely important to us and important for our members. I am very, very, very proud to say that we gave over 1 million meals through what we call the Basic Meals Program, and continue to provide meals throughout 2021 for disimpacted seniors and Medicaid recipients. We also provide 25, 50, and 75 healthy food cards for the dual eligible seniors so that they don't run out of food towards the end of the month. We know that before the pandemic, many seniors eligible for Medicaid specifically experience health complications during periods when they have to choose between, quite honestly, eat and paying for prescription medication. And we want to make sure that we give them the ability for them to actually eat and be healthy. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for your leadership and innovation as a co-leader of our Bold Goal Senior Impact Committee, which is absolutely extremely beneficial, you know, to our communities. We work and understand that this is not an easy job, and it's a very challenging job. But I'll tell you what, we are very proud of the partnership and the support that we have both shared. The work that you have done on that committee has really served seniors isolated at home during the pandemic with technology to help them focus on wellness instead of, quite honestly, sickness. I am honored that Humana is able to share the success of the seniors with you. So many seniors have persevered through this year, and we're glad that many are able to do so much more now than a year ago, especially during the lockdown. Let's continue to deepen the collaborations and to add partners under blue skies so that we are ready for whatever the next challenge is. I want to say once again, thank you, and thank you all for your friendships and friends at Humana. Thank you.
Thank you again, Humana and Al Hernandez, for your sponsorship of today's event and your partnership on all the issues we're working on. So when we talk about resilience, we need to look no further than Clarence Fawcett, one of the seniors we serve. Clarence and his wife, Marie Ann, were married for over 65 years. Yeah, they met in 1949 when Clarence was in the Army. They have 4 children and shared a love of baseball that Clarence still enjoys today. Marie Ann was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and was receiving services from one of our partner agencies to help her get through every single day. Clarence was Marie Ann's caregiver until she passed away. Sally, let's take a moment to hear now from Clarence as he talks about his incredible life.
Indeed, look forward to it.
I went in the service in the Army in October of 1945. Went to basic training in Camp Crowder, Missouri. From there to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, to radio repair school, and then all the way back to Camp Polk, Louisiana, and then all the way back then to Fort Dix, New Jersey, to Germany. Had a lot of experiences on the train back then in the military service. They treated us pretty nice. Was in Germany for about 2 years, came back, got discharged October 1952. After my second tour in Korea, and got married before I went to Korea. Did not have any idea that's where I was going to go, but I went to Okinawa for a short time when the Korean War broke open. And I think June the 25th, 1950, they looked at my military spec and put me in infantry. I got married on December the 13th, 1949. I had met my wife at the ball field where I was playing ball. And she also played ball for Webb City in St. Pete, which is quite a history behind that organization. And we were married for 66 years and 7 months when she passed on July the 13th, 2016. I belong to the Kids and Cubs, which is a three-quarter century softball club that has an office in the Sunshine Center at St. Pete. In that same building, there is an office for the Office of Aging. And I got to know the young lady that was there, and she interviewed me one day because she knew my wife had beginning signs of Alzheimer's. And that was my first encounter with the area agency. Shortly after I enrolled my wife in the area agency, I got involved with a support group that had at that time Neighborly Care Network, which had an office in the Sunshine Center. And I would work in the office sometimes on the days we were not playing ball, and my wife would go to Neighborly Care Network, and then after I got through, then we would have lunch and go home, whatever. Later, I transferred her to Neighborly Care Network on 131st Street in Largo, which is fairly close to where we live. One of the things that we learned from the area agency was the fact that when things change drastically with a person that you're a caregiver for, you need to update your information. So it was one of the pieces of information that we received from our caregiver coordinator that told us to update annually with the office, or update when there was drastic changes, for example, falling. And when my wife began to fall quite often, then I felt that it was time now to move on to long-term care in a facility. Office of Aging had a network that would give you different places that you might consider to place your loved one. I think one of the hallmarks of life and resilience is staying active. When you do not do something that you had done for years, you really forget how to do it. And one of the things I'm a firm believer in is you must exercise daily, or the most days of the week, in order to keep agile enough to be able to walk. And walking is one of the things that you'll notice in seniors, that if you see one person that's 80 years old and you see him again 10 years later, he doesn't walk the same. And remember, walking is part of life. My go-to exercise is in the morning when I rise from bed. I put my feet on the floor and I will do a standing exercise. And this morning I did 175 standing exercises before I really got out of the bed to do whatever I had to. In the military, you learn one thing. accomplish one thing at the beginning of the day. And usually that's making your bed. And when you make your bed and it passes inspection, then that's your first thing of the day. And I learned that in 1945 when I went to basic training. I do not make my bed every morning now. I pull the covers back. The best advice I could give to anyone is to make sure that you, if possible, can get out of the house and just talk with peers. Because when you talk about just about anything with someone that is your age or close to your age, you will find out how they really negotiate the difficulties of aging. I would say the most important thing right now in my life is to, when someone needs help, regardless of what it's for, that to be there, if I have the knowledge and the experience, is to help them in times of need. Because most people wait until the last minute to really explore what the next step needs to be. Because I'm a military veteran, one of the things that you learn when you go to the VA for service is you give them your last name. My last name is Fawcett. My first name is Clarence Fawcett Rutherford, Jr.
Clarence, you are a real inspiration. I'd like to be doing 175 exercises every morning too. And make your bed, that's for sure. Now I'd like to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Dr. David Bernstein. Dr. Bernstein is a board-certified physician with a specialty in internal medicine and geriatric medicine. Today, he will share his insights into resilience and the formula to living a long and healthy life. For those who have questions for Dr. Bernstein, feel free to ask them in the chat box, and Dr. Bernstein will help us answer them. We will be providing his contact information if you would like to learn more about his current work and how to stay healthy as you age.
I'd also like to mention that The Power of Five, Dr. Bernstein's book, is going to be sent to 20 lucky viewers today, and those names will be randomly selected and notified after the event today. Let's now hear from Dr. Bernstein, Sally.
Look forward to it.
What was I thinking? Have I really agreed to give a keynote address about resilience to the Area Agency of Aging of Pinellas and Pasco County? Have I really agreed to discuss the most talked about word for the past 18 months? To address the ingredient that most sports teams, especially the Buccaneers and the Rays, use to attribute to their success? Happily and with enthusiasm, I'm here to do just that. Resilience is a major contributor to the survival of senior adult population, not only during the pandemic, but over a lifetime. The same can be said about the resilience as a contributor to the success of the AAA. As an organization, the AAA wrestles with the chaos of life and the survival of aging clients every day. Congratulations to all of you. Healthy aging does require resilience. It requires resilience of the healthcare system, the various levels of healthcare providers, and our patients and clients. I believe resilience is the backbone for the survival of our species. What is resilience? Well, it depends on who you're talking to. Biologists have their definition. Ecologists have a similar one. Physicists have one, but ultimately we speak about the same concept. I like the one I found that psychologists use. Resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, significant sources of stress, such as family and relationship problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stressors. When I think of resilience, I visualize these two images. I'm David Bernstein, and I'm honored to be invited to address such an important topic with you today and this vital organization. I made the decision to study aging and become a geriatrician and focus on preventive care and longevity after reading the National Geographic article associated with the cover picture I just showed. I was additionally influenced by my mother's struggle with the medical care her parents, my grandparents, received late in their lives. My grandparents lived into their late 80s and had several characteristics that have been associated with longevity. They had resilience too. Why is resilience so important? And why such a big issue in 2021? This word is also incredibly relevant for successful organizations such as the AAA, which assists seniors every day. Here are some of my observations. For the past year and a half, we have all been living in the perfect storm. COVID, civil unrest, political chaos, high unemployment, healthcare inequities, and economic concerns, to name a few of the factors we wake up to every single day. So not only is this perfect storm affecting us, it's superimposed on the lives of our vulnerable seniors, your clients, my patients. The first question to address today is, how are you and your clients adapting to that adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, and stress? The answer just might be resilience. The National Geographic centenarian and the tortoise have given us clues. But due to time constraints, I will limit my remarks today to resilience and address the Galapagos tortoise and the centenarian at another time and place. At the beginning of the COVID pandemic, those of us in the medical field or supportive services thought that our seniors would all succumb to the perfect storm. We were extremely concerned regarding the imposition of social isolation required to avoid exposure to the virus and the psychological consequences in this age group. I'm here to tell you today, it didn't happen that way or the way we expected it would. Why? Because our senior population had much more resilience than we thought they had. And they had more than their younger counterparts. It has been stunning. I've been reading countless articles describing this phenomenon. And I want to repeat myself. Our senior population had more resilience than we thought they had. And they had more than their younger counterparts. I will give you my take on this over the next few moments. My second question for today is, how did this happen? Let me start by telling you about one such woman I provided care to before and during the pandemic. I would like to talk to you and tell you about Estelle. She was born in 1923 in Rhode Island, and at a young age, her family moved to the Bronx, New York. Her grandparents were immigrants from Eastern Europe. Her parents lived relatively long lives by standards of the times into their 70s and 80s, and her father's smoking may have contributed to her early demise. She and her husband raised 4 children. She worked as a seamstress at a young age and while raising her children. When her children were old enough to attend school, she became a teacher's aide, working into her 80s, always in the setting of special needs children. She retired only when her primary teacher for many years took a medical leave. She took care of herself by eating a healthy diet, exceeding whatever was considered healthy at the time. She led an active life, but was not overtly athletic. She incorporated transcendental meditation into her life and the lives of her children in the 1970s, which is really quite phenomenal. She found it played a pivotal role in her life, helping her to remain balanced. She realized at an early age, maintaining a positive attitude would have favorable impacts on her life, and practicing that paid her dividends. She expressed gratitude toward others her entire life. At the age of 94, while assisting another resident with coffee in the dining room of her assisted independent living facility, she fractured her hip and fell to the ground. She had successful surgery, awoke from anesthesia, and the remainder of the 3-day hospitalization and 20-day rehab stint were uneventful. With a little help from her family, she returned to her independent living facility directly from rehab. That's amazing. So, more questions to ask. What can we learn from Estelle and others like her? What can we look for in our clients, and how can we adapt ourselves to flourish with resilience in the years to come? Well, here's what I discovered. A few years ago, I had been digesting some research findings presented at a geriatric conference. The investigators were measuring resilience in the geriatric population. They were using words similar to the words I use to describe my patients who were aging successfully. I found it was very intriguing. They were measuring the same characteristics in their senior population that I observed contributed to longer lives in my patients. After reflecting on their research, I realized that, independently, I had developed my own take on resilience. I invite you to see what you think. As I begin my take on resilience, please indulge me for a moment as I digress and I explain how I arrived at the 5-letter acronym GRACE. In medical school, we learned a lot of mnemonic devices as a way to remember all the trivial and important information about diseases. Because of my experience in dealing with physicians and patients, I've made a point of limiting any of my lists nowadays to just 5 items. My reasoning is that most people, including doctors, cannot remember more than 5 items on any given list. Besides, I have 5 fingers on each hand. I rely on 5 senses for my survival, and there were 5 members of my family growing up. So remembering 5 items works for me. During my 40-year career, I observed that individuals with resilience and longevity demonstrated 5 traits which I developed the acronym GRACE. As I review these traits, reflect on your family, friends, and senior clients who have aged gracefully, and the features you could incorporate in your lives to do the same. G stands for goals, such as having a goal or a purpose in life. R stands for roots. This has 2 meanings. One has to do with DNA and genes, and the other has to do with developing and maintaining deep roots within a family, business, or organization. The AAA is an example of an organization with deep roots in the community. A stands for attitude and gratitude. Having a positive attitude and expressing gratitude is a clear influencer of better physical and mental health and resilience. C stands for companionship. It has been clearly shown that people live longer and thrive when they have some sort of companionship, a spouse, children, close friends who provide love and affection and can provide physical and emotional support if and when needed. E stands for environment. This is a broad category and it has to do with the environment in which we live and the environment within us, our bodies, and how we can take care of each. Now let's return to Estelle and consider what I think contributed to her successful aging and her resilience. Estelle had goals and a purpose in life, raising a family, and when opportunities arose for her to contribute to her family, she took a job as a seamstress. When her children matured, she became a teaching assistant. More recently, her setting a goal to return to independent living after a rehab is yet another example of setting and maintaining goals in life. Estelle recognized that her family had good roots in DNA and genes that led to a longer life, and she lived her life accordingly, not forsaking her good genes and DNA. Now, I want to make an important point here. Just because a person has bad genes does not mean he or she is doomed. What it means is that they have to make changes in their lives to offset bad genes. There's an appropriate quote from the famous author Jack London that addresses dealing with a bad hand of cards that I believe applies here. He said, "Life is not always a matter of holding good cards, but sometimes playing a poor hand well." Estelle had a great attitude, filled with generosity and gratitude. With regard to companionship, she worked to have a solid relationship with her husband and has always been close with her children and extended family. She maintained close bonds with the teachers she assisted with over the years. When it came to environment, Estelle was not much for formal exercise, but you can bet your bottom dollar being a teacher's assistant required a lot of energy. She and her entire family practiced transcendental meditation basically all their lives. It should be no surprise to my audience today that within the category of environment, I present and recommend 5 additional areas for intentional change we can all make to improve resilience and our health span. Here are my 5 recommendations to improve your environment. Get more sleep, sweat, and socialization, and reduce your stress and your sugars, sweets, and carbohydrates. Ultimately, this is the subject of my book, The Power of 5, the ultimate formula for longevity and remaining youthful. As a result of my research during the past year regarding COVID and the pandemic, there is an unexpected dividend of applying these 5 recommendations as they can mitigate the severity and reduce the mortality associated with COVID. There's a second component that I attribute to senior resilience. It relates to the senior's response to major life changes, including isolation during the pandemic. I believe this is a generational effect. Estelle and others in her age group grew up sacrificing a lot in life. Resilience and acceptance were a way of life. Most lived through, in some way, experienced the Great Depression and World War II. In addition to learning how to delay gratification, they raised a generation of baby boomers to do the same. Both of these generations became self-sufficient, and they were proud of it. They responded to the need to solve their own problems because there was no one else to do it otherwise. They were creative and addressed challenges with common sense and ingenuity. I know this from observing my patients and employees from this generation and how they dealt with adversity. My older patients managed their time socially isolated with greater ease than their children and individuals in younger generations. In a relative sense, they took it all in stride. In a lot of ways, that's what people with resilience and who have healthy aging strategies do. Now we come to the last and probably most important question for us to consider today. What can we do with this information? For our senior clients, for our aging parents, for ourselves, and for the organization we work with, the AAA. Well, with regard to our senior clients, while working with clients, you have the opportunity to exhibit even greater empathy and interest in their condition. I would recommend incorporating GRACE questions as scripted or unscripted component of all your initial and annual interviews. It could provide insights that you might not have considered before, enabling you to enhance the lives and health of each client. It might open up areas for expression of pride or areas to address for improvement within the client. With regard to our aging parents, we can gain insight into what makes them tick and areas to engage in conversation to enhance their lives, their longevity, and their health span. Specifically for the AAA, to reflect upon how we maintain health, physical, mental, and resilience of the organization and its workforce. How can we apply GRACE to the boardroom? With regard to ourselves, develop a new game plan incorporating these 5 traits for longer, healthier lives? How can we apply grace in our homes, with our family members, or even in our kitchens? This could make us better providers of service for our clients as well. Now is the time to incorporate grace or resilience into your personal, family, organizational, and professional lives. There is a final and very important ingredient that must be included in this process, and that is it must be done with intention. We must take a close look at our families, ourselves, our clients, and this organization and make intentional changes. It won't happen by osmosis. It won't knock at our door. It won't happen because it would be a good idea. We have to intentionally incorporate grace wherever we go. So after this keynote address and the annual meeting, I recommend reflecting on the areas in your lives where you can add grace with intention. I'm very proud of the material I have posted about aging, longevity, and recommendations for remaining youthful. I have thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity of sharing my thoughts with you today and appreciate the opportunity of being invited.
Thank you, Dr. Bernstein, for your presentation today. We'd like to now take a moment, Sally, to mention the work that our partners have done over the past year. Because of the pandemic, we've had to redefine how we provide services to seniors. Our trusted in-person services were not going to work while seniors were self-isolating at home. One of the initiatives that was launched during the pandemic was our restaurant initiative that we call Dining Out at Home. During 2020, of the 667,000 meals we delivered in Pasco and Pinellas to 12,000 seniors every day, we partnered with 15 restaurants that prepared meals daily during the pandemic. You're about to meet Tom Snee with Pasco County Senior Services and Megan Bellagiri, owner of our Lisa's Events, one of the establishments we partnered with. Sally, let's take a moment now to hear about the Dining Out at Home program and our 2 partners and what they did for the seniors in our community.
My name is Tom Snee. I'm the manager of Pasco County Senior Services. We're county government under the Board of County Commissioners. We're within the Public Services Department and the Community Services Branch. The Dining Out at Home program was an amazing program that Area Agency on Aging came up with. It basically connected some of the local restaurants in our community through us to the seniors. So some funding came from the Families First Act and the CARES Acts. And then Area Agency came up with the idea on, we have all these struggling restaurants in our community. How can we connect them with providing a service to the seniors? Because the seniors also needed, during the pandemic, they needed meals. It was a huge issue. So they married those 2 ideas together, and it was extremely successful. I mean, just here in Pasco County, I think we had like 70,000 meals delivered through the Dining Out at Home program. It was great. 5 restaurants partnered with us on it.
My name is Megan Bellagiri, and I am the owner of our Lisa's Events and also Havana Dreamers Cafe. So everything we do is food related. Area Agency on the Aging plays a huge part in our community as far as getting food and getting needs filled for our elderly in our community. We have met them several times, and the people that are involved with Area Agency on the Aging at the Feeding Pasco's Elderly Breakfast, and we've had the opportunity to work with them before. The Dining Out at Home program was an amazing program that came together through a lot of different agencies within the county. And we were able to contact them once we heard that they were putting this program together to get meals out to the seniors in our community who are homebound and whose senior centers were closing down due to the pandemic. And they were looking for restaurants to partner with to get the food out to the people in the community.
The partnership that we had with our Lisa's Events was, they were the restaurant that was providing the meals that we were providing to the seniors. We provide them through both the drive-through and through home-delivered meals. It was a huge help. We we had a pretty steep request for them. There was a lot of meals that were, I think they were the #1 restaurant as far as the volume of the meals we were asking for. So anytime we had a change, okay, we want to move to this building, can you deliver there? Extremely flexible, it was great. And also area agency was the one that screened the restaurants for us, and they were kind of the ones that facilitated the payment. So we would basically provide the tasking for our Lisa's Events and the other restaurants, but then the billing, the invoicing would go through Area Agency on Aging. Our Lisa's Events through us was delivering approximately 100, 200 meals, depending on the day and depending on how far into we were, because this amount was expanding as we would go on. So we'd add more and more people as the pandemic went on to the service, and they just kept meeting the need. And sometimes I know we were putting them under strain for the amount of meals we were asking for, but they were able to do it, not with any issue.
At the beginning of the pandemic, we had 11 staff members. At the end of the pandemic, we also had 11 staff members. We were able to keep everybody employed due to a huge part on the dining out at home program. That gave us work every day. Being in a catering business, everything is groups of people meeting together. The pandemic shut down all of our business. There were no weddings, there were no large gatherings. Anything that we would normally do was 100% shut down. So we were still able to provide anywhere, on average, I would say 160 meals a day to the seniors in our community due to the program of dining out at home. So that would be the equivalent of us doing one wedding every day as far as the amount of meals that we were putting out. So we were able to keep everybody employed, and people actually were into overtime. People that were part-time employees actually became full-time employees because of the program. The interaction with the seniors that we were actually delivering the meals to, we delivered to different communities as well, like to their housing communities. And they would wait on the sidewalk for you to come. We'd pull up and there'd be people sitting there. There was one woman in particular who always wanted to press the elevator button when we got there. And she'd always say, "What's for breakfast today? Do we have breakfast for lunch?" That was one of the things. We did quiche one day. We had like a rotating menu. And she'd always say, "Is it breakfast? Is it breakfast?" That was her favorite thing.
Some of the feedback that we got about our Lisa's Events and other restaurants was hundreds of comment cards from clients that would submit them to us, saying how great this program was. Not just that they loved the meals, which was a big part of it, but also they really had no other option at this time. So it was a huge help for them. I want to talk about resilience. One of the things that we saw right at the beginning of the pandemic was we immediately knew the senior centers were going to be closing. So one of our more innovative senior center coordinators, Carolyn Johnson, out in Dade City, she came to me, she gives me a call, she's like, "Hey, Tom, if McDonald's and Burger King can have a drive-through, why can't we? This will allow us to continue to serving our seniors throughout the pandemic, and it'll keep us all engaged and helping them." So I'm like, that is a great idea. I was like, I wish I would have thought about it. It was such a great idea. So we wrote the whole thing up as a proposal. We ran it to Area Agency on Aging. They loved it. Ran it up to Department of Elder Affairs. It got approved and was adopted as a statewide best practice. Within 2 days, we were running the drive-throughs. So this was a huge thing. I mean, we'd never done it before. And we actually wound up serving double the amount of people we were serving through our normal congregate program in the senior centers. So not only did we sustain our level of service, we actually doubled it. So this was a big deal for us, and everybody was on board and 100% charging for it. Area Agency immediately said, "This is a great idea, let's make it work." And then that went up to Department of Elder Affairs. It was fascinating to see the whole thing in action.
We started getting cards from the seniors thanking us, letting us know how much we were appreciated, that they liked the meals, that it was something for them to look forward to since they weren't able to get out. It was different faces, showing up for them. And I would say we had probably 25 different cards. We got notes when the program wrapped up. We got notes from them saying that they were going to miss us, asking, if we could just come by and say hello, which Angelica is my lead person in the kitchen. She also did a lot of the deliveries. And she actually did stop back by, we had a delivery over by one of the areas that we delivered to was landing at St. Andrews. And she stopped by to say hello to this one particular woman who made her masks, because Angelica always wore a white mask when she came. And one of the residents there made masks, and she would just give them out around. And she told Angelica that her masks weren't exciting enough, and she made her all these fun masks and colors and stuff that, and Angelica still wears them now. It's fun. As far as resilience, and the resilience that we expected was that we were providing this service to the seniors, that we were doing it for them. I think we ended up getting just as much, if not more, from them, knowing that we were helping, knowing that they were excited, that we would come, knowing that some of these people weren't able to get out and go to the grocery store. If they had friends and neighbors who were, bringing them food or helping them otherwise, that they weren't able to do that through the pandemic. So, and the appreciativeness, that's the smiles, I think we got just as much from it as they did. And being able to keep my entire staff employed was huge. And what it did for their families, where they weren't having to worry about whether or not they were going to have a job tomorrow. Well, all the other restaurants around us were closing and laying people off. We were still working through the whole thing.
There was a really neat story that happened during the pandemic. I got an email from, I would say, a somewhat distraught granddaughter out of state. And she's like, look, my grandfather's gonna be 100 years old. We're all on lockdown. There's nothing we can do. We wanna be there with him. He's there alone. Is there anything you can do? Is there anything the county has in place, any kind of services that you guys have? And I'm like, this is something that's heartbreaking to hear about. So I pulled my team in and I'm like, does anybody have any ideas? And then Davia, one of our program coordinators, says, why don't we see if we can do a county, like a drive-through, like one of the drive-bys? So I'm like, this is an awesome idea. So what we did is we got in touch, because he was also a veteran. We got in touch with Veteran Services and they're like, oh, this is great, let's do it. So we put it out to the entire county and we got 50 county vehicles, got together, fire trucks, police cars, and did a drive-by for his birthday with signs and everything. They beeped going by. It was amazing. It was awesome. The commissioner came out. It was a great event.
Today, after the pandemic, now that I say after the pandemic, obviously it's not over and we're still going through it and changes are still being made. But at this point, people, I believe, are starting to feel more comfortable. More people are being vaccinated and stuff is picking up. I'm able to continue on with business without having to look for new employees, without having to restaff and retrain. And we're booking events. People are gathering again.
I love that story. Megan and Tom are amazing, and so was the staff of the Area Agency on Aging to create this idea and then get it to really be implemented. So thank you for that. We've received letters from individuals, and this is a senior who said, thank you for the box of goodies. It's like Christmas each day when I eat something. The turkey with raspberry sauce and the meatloaf slice is great. Thank you so much for everything. This was obviously impacting not only this person, but many, many people in Pasco and Pinellas.
It truly was one of the amazing programs that we implemented on a dime last year, thanks to the Department of Elder Affairs and our great partners. So please stay tuned. We have a lot more going on. Don't forget, we have that grand giveaway at the end of today's presentation. And we'd like to now take this opportunity to thank all of our sponsors. Your support goes directly to the AAAPP's Unmet Needs Program. 100% of the money raised today will go to help seniors in crisis. The fund has assisted dozens of seniors since we started in 2018. Bev was one of those seniors. She's 63 and lives in Pinellas County and is a survivor of domestic violence abuse. She didn't have the money to cover the cost of a U-Haul to be able to leave her abusive situation. So the Unmet Needs Fund provided the funds necessary to move her out of an abusive situation and into a new and safe home where she now lives and continues to receive services from our agency.
Let me tell you about another senior, Jan, who is 74 from Pasco County. We provided her with incontinence supplies during the pandemic when she couldn't leave her home, and finding them was so difficult at that time. She told us that it gave her great confidence and dignity. So thank you, sponsors, for making such a difference in the life of older adults in our community.
Here's a slideshow of those sponsors.
It is now my privilege to introduce you to this year's Outstanding Humanitarian Award recipient, Ms. Mary Hayden Doyle, a member of the Area Agency on Aging Pasco-Pinellas Advisory Council and one of our Shine volunteers. Over the past several months, Mary and many volunteers worked tirelessly to assist seniors with getting the COVID-19 vaccine. In the early days of the vaccine, the registration process was difficult for many. So Mary organized some of the Shine volunteers, her neighbors, and churchgoers. So they assisted others to register online and transport seniors to vaccination sites. Although Mary does not like the spotlight on her, we feel strongly that because of her efforts, not only with this endeavor, but all of her other amazing work for the community, she was the perfect person to thank this year. Mary, thank you so much. You are a very special person, and you've made great strides in helping seniors in this community.
Thank you, Sally. I'm very, very honored because, in fact, it took a village. There were a group of neighbors and friends and others that helped us do this work, and want to recognize in particular a very active group of volunteers in South Florida who managed a Facebook page and were a tremendous resource to us. And actually, the group work that they did was recognized nationally and was a catalyst to other groups doing this work. But, you know, today, 5 months after we started, it feels like perhaps it's over because, in fact, the supply actually exceeds demand to the point where vaccines are expiring and perhaps going to be thrown away. But I would argue the work is not done. And in fact, there are very vulnerable seniors in nursing homes, and potentially others are going to require booster shots in the future. To the point of nursing homes, last month, about 20% of our Florida nursing homes had new residents who tested positive. And less than 50% of the staff in nursing homes are in fact vaccinated. And we're now inviting family members into the nursing home, which is a positive thing. But where are the rules and where are the oversight to ensure that visitors are in fact vaccinated? So I have a concern there, and I hope we all can focus on that. And the other issue is that recent information from Dr. Fauci says that they're actually doing some studies to determine who and when people might require a booster. And it's very probable that the most vulnerable of our population will require boosters. So once again, we're going to have the challenge of how we schedule people, how we get information, and I think we're all going to be called on to help those efforts again. So it's my hope that the experience of the last 5 months is shaping and informing us that we're better prepared in the future, because truly this does take a village. And thank you for this honor.
Thank you, Mary. You are just such a special person and much appreciated. So we want to present these flowers to you along with your
Thank
award.
you so much.
You're
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mary, for all the incredible work you've done, and Sally. For those of you who attended our luncheons before, you'll know that Sally is also one of our recognized outstanding humanitarians for all of her amazing work on behalf of seniors. So I'm incredibly honored to have Mary Hayden Doyle and Sally Parks here today with us.
Thank you.
We're almost there, folks, the grand giveaway. I'd like to introduce you to Charlie Robinson, our current board president, to have the final word as he thanks all of you, and the fun job of picking and announcing today's grand giveaway winner of a 3-day stay at a Hilton in Orlando. Charlie, please join us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Anne Marie and Sally, for sharing some incredible stories of resilience and for co-hosting today's virtual event. Over the past year, our board of directors has continued to meet virtually and support the work of our AAA and its partner agencies. We appreciate all the work they've been doing during the pandemic. I also like to thank Anne Marie and her team. They kept working throughout the entire pandemic, assessing needs and creating programs to address them. We appreciate her and her team very, very much. Special shout out to Stacy Bolin, the AAA's Director of Outreach and this event's producer. She did a wonderful job coordinating all aspects of today's event. And now I get to select the winner of our grand giveaway, which is a 3-day stay at the Hilton Hotel. And I am hoping I will be able to read the name. Ron Regan.
Oh, okay. Yay, Ron Regan.
Enjoy this great giveaway. We'll be in touch with you with more information on what to do. As they used to say, Porky Pig used to say, that's all, folks. Thank you again for attending this year's event. We look forward to seeing you in person next year.
Thanks, and
Thank you.
bye-bye.